One of the things I just wanted to show as far as monitoring soil goes, this shovel right here is a really good tool. I use it all the time in our pastures, and if you just take a spade and a sample, first of all, you can notice that this is good ground. I mean, it's black. The color, the darker it is, the better. I've been told that a good reference is a Hershey candy bar wrapper. I mean, since I was a kid, it's always been the same dark brown, and that's kind of how you want your soil to, the color of it to be. I mean, this is beyond dark brown. Good stuff. The other thing is you can see the aggregates here, and that's what you want. And in soil that's been grazed a long time, there's even more aggregation than this. It should look like a whole handful of dark cottage cheese. And the more it has those curds in it, the more aggregation you have. And aggregation, what it basically is a sign of microbial life in your soil, because the microbes in the soil, certain microbes make a glue-like substance, and that's what aggregates your soil. It's just soil particles that have been glued together, and in each one of those aggregates, that's where they live. All the microbes live in these aggregates, and if you pile a whole bunch of aggregates together and make soil out of them, there's air spaces in there because all the aggregates don't push together, and those aggregates that airspace is really handy for nitrogen to come out of the air and get absorbed and infiltrated through your soil, and have the bacteria, various associated bacteria, convert that nitrogen to nitrate through a couple different processes. So if you have soil that has no air spaces between it, that air can't get in there, and so you're losing your ability to cycle nitrogen in that case. The other thing that it does is those air spaces can it gives them the chance to fill with water in a rainfall event. And so if you have no air spaces in your soil, that water will tend to run off your soil, and that's what you don't want. You know, you want to have soil that can infiltrate really well. And so that leads us to this next little tool that's really handy, and any of us can do it. You just pound this ring. This is a 6-inch ring. It's off a 6-inch main line on a pivot, and you pound that in. About 3 inches. And I've got a line right here at 3 inches, so I just pound it in to the line, and that keeps the water from spreading out. And then you just take a little plastic bag, and what you want to do is pour 1 inch of water inside this ring, and so it'll measure, okay, 16 ounces. So if we pour this in here, that's going to be equivalent to 1 inch of rainfall. And we just pull the water out, the bag out. And we time it. And we got a phone that they can stopwatch on. Okay, we'll give it 15 seconds. Yeah. And what you do is you do this twice, and you time the second trial on it. Usually the first one, this soil is pretty wet already, but usually if you're working with soil that doesn't have a whole lot of soil moisture in it to start with, you do one pour, and then you time the second pour. And your second pour is the one that you keep in mind, because I've done it a lot on our farm, and it might infiltrate the first pour in like 5 seconds, and think, oh boy, this is really good ground, you know. And the second pour might take maybe a minute, you know. So as an example, on our ground, we have irrigated pasture. It's had sheep and dairy cows on it since 1982, and they've been rotated every day since 1982. And so we've got a lot of high impact, animal impact on that ground over the years. And it's also had a lot of compost applied to it. So it's running about 5.5% organic matter right now. In 1982, it was 1.3%. So it's climbed in those 35 or so years. And the pasture itself, it varies a little bit, but most of the time it'll infiltrate the second pour in less than 45 seconds. And then we've got some ground that was in dairy corrals for 30-some years, never saw a plant grow on it. And it's the plants that improve organic matter. So if you got to have a growing plant in order to improve organic matter. So this dairy lot was bare for, almost 30 years. And then we decided to cover crop it for 2 years and then planted it to grass. And so that was 6 years ago. And so it went from 1% to, I think it's 4.3% as of last year. But it still takes 45 minutes to infiltrate an inch. So it really varies. And
you mean 45 seconds or minutes?
No, minutes, Cliff. Yeah. So that's compared to less than a minute on the pasture that's had animals intensively grazed for 35 years or so. So that's a really good demonstration of the power of livestock on soil. So the other thing, that same ground that's the poor ground, its color is a beige, a pale brown. So when you take your shovel and you look at it, immediately it's a giveaway. And the other thing is, we all know what good soil smells like. It's got that really earthy aroma to it. That's caused from a certain, actinomyces? Actinomyces, and it's a bacteria. Is that correct? Yeah. So it just lets off that aroma, and that's a characteristic of all good soil. This soil that is taking like 45 minutes to infiltrate, it doesn't smell. It doesn't smell at all. So another tip, it's a giveaway. And the other thing is, if you dig it up, it does have aggregation in it, but it's nowhere near as good of the as aggregates as our better soil. So I love using a spade, and I've just started using this infiltration ring the last few years. But you can tell so much about the soil on your farm just by doing that. You can't necessarily take this infiltration test and take it off your place and go to another place. Soil is different on every different farm, so you can't say, oh, my soil it infiltrates in 45 seconds and your soil took 2 minutes, it's not comparable that way, because you have different clay amounts in your soil, different sandy loams and things like that. But you can certainly use it on your place with similar soil types, and it's a really good way to monitor it. The other way that you can monitor what's happening on your soils when you integrate livestock in them is a Haney test. And it's a relatively new test, and we've used it for 5 years now. There is some criticism of it, but what it allows you to do, hopefully, is it tells you how much nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium will be mineralized or broken down and made available to the plants over the growing season. And that's different from a standard soil test that if you take a sample today and send it into the lab says you've got, like, say, maybe 40 pounds of actual N in your soil. That's what you have today only. It doesn't mean anything that you're going to have that much 2 months from now. You might have more, you might have less, depending on the biological activity of your soil. But the Haney test tries to project the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, and K that's going to be mineralized or made available through the bacteria or the microbes in the soil over maybe a 60 or 90 day span. And that's really handy because if you're growing a crop, you can test it like right now and see how much nitrogen you're going to have through August. And that's, it'll tell you whether you have to fertilize or not. And hopefully, if your soil is really functional and very active in terms of the microbial populations, you may not have to fertilize. So it is something that can be worked for, and integrating livestock into a cropping system is one of the best ways to improve your soil, improve the biology of your soil. I was talking to Mike earlier before, and we transitioned through 4 years off of using 160 pounds of N per season to grow 6 tons of grass. And we did that for 30-some years because I didn't think you could grow grass without fertilizer. I mean, I was darn sure you couldn't, But I found out completely differently. We cut our fertilization back from 160 pounds the next year to 75. The next year we used 75 pounds again, and then the third year we used 32, and the fourth year we went off. And our grass yields are the same, actually maybe even a little more than they were when we were on fertilization. So what it taught us is you can use the soil biology to work for you, but you have to graze for that too. And integrating livestock is the first step to doing that. And that's where the power of livestock is in a cropping system too, is you're using them to improve the soil health. And so, like Pat was saying, you don't have to use quite so much inputs. And that's what it's all about farming, is getting rid of some of these inputs. And livestock is one way to accomplish that.
Still almost there. If you guys want to look, see what's happening. There was 1 inch in here when we started talking, or I started talking, and see it's still got a 1/4 inch anyway, and you let it go down till it just glistens on the top. It doesn't have to be dry, it just kind of glistens on the top, so you got a very thin layer of water on the top of your soil. It's a neat trick. I between a shovel and this infiltration ring here, on my own place, I can tell lots, because you can do it on a place that the grass isn't growing quite so well, and it just shows you why. It doesn't infiltrate quite so much. The soil itself is not as aggregated. It doesn't quite smell as well as a good soil, and it's lighter colored. Those 3 things just are a dead giveaway. And if you didn't have a soil lab, these are the things I'd be using on your own place.
So it'd be super interesting to do this over there.
Yes, it would. Yeah, I bet that it does in half the time. Yeah. This is kind of a bad place to do it, actually. It's compacted. Not as much. I bet there's more aggregation over there. Just 5 feet in, too. So, but you all can do this. This thing was free. It came from a busted down pivot. I mean, that wasn't free, but I got the pipe out of it. So all it takes is a plastic bag and 16 ounces of water. And if it takes 45 minutes, you can all go off and do something else and come back to it.